with them that are
All right, can you guys hear me in the room on the mic? Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Let me see if I can get this working on the screens, on the Zoom. Good morning, fabulous Employee Forum folks. Can you guys hear me online?
Yes.
Awesome. And now you should be able to see me too. Okay. I'm going to give folks about another minute, and then we're going to get started because we have a rather packed, very packed schedule this morning. So I will start back up in about a minute and a half. Natalia, you are welcome to sit all the way at the front with me. You're also welcome to sit there behind me. You're good. Okay, that's fair. You are wise. Hopefully the Chancellor finds us. Oh, is he online this morning? No, he's interacting probably with the students. Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yes. That is totally fine. Good morning. Good, how are you? Good to see you. Thank you for coming, appreciate it. Yeah, you catch up with some students outside? Yeah. I didn't realize there was an orientation going on this morning. It's pretty awesome. All right. Matt, do you want to go ahead and start the recording? All right.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of our fabulous delegates and officers from the Employee Forum, our guests, and members of the press who have joined us this morning. My name is Rebecca Howell, and I am I was going to say chair-elect, but that's not true anymore. Katie is here as the Employee Forum Chair Emeritus, and I am apparently here as the Employee Forum Chair. So this is my first official meeting, and I am very excited to have everyone here. Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to have everyone here. We have a very packed agenda with lots of really important stuff to cover. I do want to let everybody know that we are going to spend the fall semester doing these meetings as a hybrid format. So those of you that are able to make it here to either Beard Hall or Carr Hall, depending on where we are going to be, we welcome you here. Whether you're a delegate or not, you are welcome to join us in person if you're available. You're also welcome to join us online, and we really do appreciate all the folks that have been able to join us online. It was just telling me the meeting's being recorded, which I kind of knew. So we hope you can join us. If that goes well, we will continue that for the spring semester as well. I know since we have a tight schedule, Chancellor Roberts, if you are ready to begin your remarks, you are welcome to go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for being here. If that works for you, that works for us. There you go.
Thank you. Good morning. Do I have to stand in a particular place for the
No,
Zoom
you can
shot?
wander around if you wish.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Well, good morning. Thanks for joining in person. Those of you who are here in the room, excited for the start of the semester. Convocation is in just over a week from Sunday. We announced yesterday or the day before that Tyler Hansborough would be speaking at Convocation. We're excited about that. A number of schools have started already, as you know. You saw the first year pharmacy students out here at dentistry and medicine have already started. We're welcoming our largest first year undergraduate class, we believe, in the 232-year history of the university. So over 5,100 first year students. I think there are 80 countries, 49 states. We missed Hawaii and 98 North Carolina counties, which bugs me because I like to try to get to 100 counties. But that should be exciting. We're looking forward to the beginning of the school year. We had our Board of Trustees meeting last week, and we announced there our fulfillment of a charge given to us by the trustees at a board meeting back in the spring, where they charged us with identifying $50 million in cuts from our budget, just given all of the uncertainty around state and federal funding. I'm happy to talk more about how we see the state and federal budget picture. And so in response to that, what we announced at the board meeting last week was up to $70 million in cuts, of which about $39 million we think are achievable this coming fiscal year. And those fall into a number of buckets. The largest bucket numerically is a reduction in non-resident financial aid. We were above our peer group in the percentage of financial aid dollars that we spent on non-residents. So we'll be scaling back our non-resident financial aid, continue to prioritize North Carolinians in the provision of our financial aid dollars. We're going to reduce some funding from our centers and institutes. It's about a 10% cut from centers and institutes. We're going to, there are maybe half a dozen units that have identified cuts that total about $12 million, and we're going to continue our Service First initiative, which we've discussed before, which is about the same dollar magnitude, between $10 and $15 million. We're still at the early stages there in terms of savings. So there are two ways to go through a a round of cuts like this. The first way is for a small group of people to make all of the decisions down to the last detail, down to the last person who's affected, and then announce the plan to the organization. I spent the first 10 or so years working at a big bank, and we always did it that way. And the drawback to that is that there is no consultation, there's no input from the organization. But the advantage is that when the plan is announced, all of the details are known. You can answer every question that folks might have about the plan. The second way of doing it is the way that we're doing it, which is to announce our targets, to announce the way that we're thinking about the reductions, but without all of the details yet finalized. And that's the inverse. So it gives us an opportunity to get more feedback, more input from the organization. And it means that we don't have all of the details now as we're announcing the plan. What I said last week when we first rolled it out to the Board of Trustees is that we do envision there will be layoffs as part of this. We don't take that decision lightly. We will do everything we can through attrition. We don't know how many layoffs we're talking about because we haven't gotten that far in the process yet, but it would be unrealistic to go through an exercise like this and not expect there to be some layoffs. Again, we'll communicate everything that we know when we know it, as soon as we know it, to this group and to other folks on campus. So this is a process that we're going to be going through for at least the upcoming fiscal year. As I say, we're trying to be as thoughtful and as methodical as possible. We have a responsibility, we believe, a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're being effective stewards of the taxpayer money and the tuition dollars that we're entrusted with, and this is in line with that, we believe. The overall targets for reductions represent about 2% of our overall budget. One thing I've been asked frequently is, do you anticipate more cuts beyond this? And the candid answer is we don't know. This is what we think is necessary to respond to the budget uncertainty that we see right now. If the budget situation, the state and federal budget situation worsens, there's a chance we'll have to do more. But this is not we're not rolling out a larger plan in stages. We don't have a secret plan for additional cuts in our back pocket that we're planning to roll out a couple of months from now. These are the cuts, the 70 million or so, are what we see as necessary and achievable over the next, call it 2 fiscal years. And we'll continue to evaluate the budget situation and communicate, again, what we know when we know it. So I'm happy to answer questions about any of that. There's also a budget, there's a email address that is budgetquestions, all one word, at unc.edu. And we'll continue to, we want input from that source, from this forum. We're going to continue to solicit as much feedback as we can around campus. I'm going to do some more listening sessions around campus to talk about this further, and I think we plan to continue to try to communicate, as I say, as much as we can, as frequently as we can. The one other thing that I'll say before I take any questions is, the university this is our 232nd academic year that we're starting now. And if there's one thing that our status as the nation's oldest public university should give us, in my view, it's the confidence to know that we can go through any set of challenges and emerge stronger on the other side. who have been through world wars, pandemics, depressions, a civil war, Carolina's always come out stronger. There's an enormously stable and resilient organization. I said to a reporter yesterday, I think it might be one of the most stable and resilient organizations in America, given our longevity. And so I have tremendous faith in the university, in the institution. I believe we are positioned extremely well strategically. I sit in meetings with other chancellors and presidents from around the country and think, would I rather be running that university or that university, that university? And the answer is always no, because I think we have a unique combination of strengths and advantages. And I think we protect those strengths by being responsible stewards of our finances, but that can sometimes entail decisions that aren't easy. So it's in that context that we're making this announcement. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Tiffany, thanks.
Hi, good morning. First of all, are you feeling okay?
I'm always okay. Yeah.
Okay, you sound a little down. I was just worried. Anyway, I am not asking questions, just making my usual plug for facilities, obviously. But I'm going to phrase it in a different way since we're looking for ways to save money. I tried to make, Nate Nuffman did some walkthroughs through facilities with me, and I tried to make it clear that facilities has been depleted for a long time, and we're extremely low on numbers of employees and resources to do the stuff that we need to do around campus, which is why you guys are hiring contractors, presumably, to fill in that void. But wouldn't it be more economically feasible to build up facilities now and in the future so that we can take on these projects and you don't have to pay an exorbitant amount to contractors to do it? Like, for example, when I was walking around the quad this morning, I noticed that contractors are painting the lamppost again. They just did it like not too long ago. If we didn't have 4 painters for the entire campus, we could take that on. Or the roofing project at the South Building. We could potentially take that on if we had the equipment and the personnel and all of that to do it. So, I mean, if you're looking for cost-saving endeavors, maybe it wouldn't be beneficial right at this moment, but it would be crazy beneficial down the road to build up facilities. But in order to do that, definitely need to increase our salary, definitely need to bring in more personnel, definitely need to get better equipment. That's my pitch.
Yeah, no, it's great feedback, and I'm not close enough to the details to respond with specifics, but I take your overall point. And Nate told me that he had walked through all of the shops recently with our new head of facilities, who's coming from Georgia Tech, and had a similar reaction that we have tremendous capacity there, and we need to be more thoughtful about how we're striking the balance between what we do in-house and what we do with contractors. And that's always going to be a little bit of a work in progress, but it's absolutely something that we should be looking at as we're thinking about how to be more efficient. I am pretty close to the South Building roof project. That's one I've paid a lot of attention to. And I am told, I don't have any way of coming up with a second opinion on this, but that it's such a highly specialized project that we did have to bring in an outside firm. It's an 18th century building with an unusual roof, but at least the question was asked there about whether we could do it in-house.
One second, I've got a question online, and then Annetta, I'll get you next. And if folks, when you are speaking, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be really helpful. Question online, now that the hiring freeze has been lifted for new positions, is there a plan or time frame for when the current employees will also be taken care of and able to move forward with reclassifications, merit increases, et cetera?
So we don't actually have a hiring freeze. We didn't have a hiring freeze. I know some individual units put at least an informal hiring freeze in place. What we have from the system is a aggregate cap on total salary dollars. So what they did is they took the April payroll number for every system school and said that number, the amount you spend on payroll in April, is your cap. You can't go above that in the aggregate. That's very different from a hiring freeze. It provides significantly more flexibility, and I think it's a much smarter way of doing it while getting to the same result. The freezes on reclassification and merit increases is a state budget office freeze. So that's dictated to all state agencies by the Office of State Budget and Management. And I believe I used to run that office when I was state budget director, and I believe what they are doing is the same thing we're doing, which is waiting to see whether we have more clarity on the state budget. So as most people probably know, we don't have a state budget now. They did not pass, the House and the Senate each passed a budget before the new fiscal year started, but they have not passed a consolidated budget. And so for the UNC system, in almost all areas, we're operating under the previous biennial budget. They did pass a mini budget last week that didn't do very much to address the UNC system. There's talk about whether they will pass further mini budgets, but we don't know. And so that's what the state budget office is waiting for, I'm pretty sure, to get more clarity before they release their freeze on those kinds of personnel actions.
Good morning, Chancellor.
Morning.
Thank you for your presentation, your briefing. My question is around communication. Based on these decisions around budget cuts, when will each of the units or professional schools, departments, what have you, when will they be charged with communicating down to their faculty and staff about cuts within their units?
Yeah, we're in that process now, but it depends on the unit. So the units that have come forward with cuts, so there are half a dozen units or so that where we've already identified a dollar level of cuts, and there the communication will happen more quickly. There's not necessarily going to be cuts in every unit. I was at a school yesterday that has had very significant reductions in federal research funding, probably our hardest hit school, and we're going to do everything we can not to cut them further. That's part of, I think, the appeal of this approach, that certainly rather than a hiring freeze, rather than an across-the-board spending cut, that we have the ability to be much more flexible, much more responsive to individual situations within the units, but it does take longer.
Good morning, Chancellor Roberts. My name is Natasha Young. Unprecedented times, right? So in the nature of this conversation and the general notice that went out on July 30th, I wanted to ask about, in the name of layoffs, and also which can oftentimes come in the names of efficiency as well, has there been conversation about potential pay cuts for employees that make more than or exceed the cost of living in the area? I took it upon myself to run some numbers and to see what that might look like, and so I have that in front of me if you ever are interested in looking into it. I'm glad that Scott is here as well. I ran a copy for you too, but I wanted to ask that question broadly before presenting some things there, if that is something that's in consideration.
So I'd love to see your numbers. Always eager to talk budget analysis. Is your question, have we considered pay cuts instead of layoffs?
Yes, or truly looking at layoffs as a last resort, and this potentially being something that could, small amounts of pay cuts, like if you make over $500,000 a year on campus and see a 5% pay reduction, my assumption is that you probably won't have drastic implications on your quality of life.
Yeah.
If you're an employee that makes $50,000 a year and you get laid off, you risk homelessness, not being able to feed your children, losing your health care, all of that. And so my ask is, if this has been considered as a mechanism for cost savings over layoffs and truly using layoffs as a last resort.
Yeah, so two-part answer. Layoffs are a last resort, and we'll do everything we can, not just through attrition, but through eliminating vacant positions. So when we talk about salary savings, those two tools are can represent really significant savings before you get to layoffs, and we always consider layoffs to be the last tool in the toolbox. Pay cuts have to be voluntary, certainly something we would be delighted to take a look at. Relatively few employees making over $500,000 a year at the...
There are 70 on campus.
Sorry?
There are 70 employees on campus making over $500,000.
A lot of them are going to be in the health system.
And athletics.
Yeah. And athletics is coming forward with a cut. They're one of the units that have been early in volunteering cuts. But absolutely, happy to have that conversation, to look at the data and to look at the analysis. But we can't impose pay cuts on state employees. It's just not the way the state employment laws work.
Thank you.
All right, I've got a couple questions. Pardon? Keith has had his hand up. Okay. Keith, go ahead.
Hey Lee, how are you?
I'm good, Keith. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm just gonna take one quick second because nobody else is acknowledging it. The tan suit looks really good. But my question, and I'm almost hesitant to ask.
Was that pro or con? I couldn't quite tell.
Oh no, it looks great. Like,
All right, thank you.
top notch.
Appreciate
like,
that.
Killing it. I'm almost hesitant to ask this, but I will anyway. You said, if I heard the number correctly, looking at a possible 10% cut to centers and institutes.
That's right.
Okay. For the sake of my ignorance and me not fully knowing, and I don't want you to give specific examples because then people will take it and run across campus and say, Lee said our center is getting cut or our institute is getting cut. What constitutes a center and institute that could possibly fall into that? Is there a list somewhere you can send me to look at so that you don't have to name an example and then people be like, Lee said we're getting cut, which is not what we're saying here. I'm just curious as to what constitutes and what falls in the category of centers and institutes.
So those are defined terms within the university. I'm sure there is a list somewhere that we can send you.
And Matt Teal just dropped it in the chat.
All right, there you go.
I'm good over here.
Thank you. But just to be really clear about something, when we say about a 10% cut, that's not going to be an across-the-board cut. That doesn't mean 10% from the budget of every center and institute. It's much more likely to mean the significant cutback or even closure of a small number. And when I say small, I mean one or two, maybe three centers or institutes, and few, if any, cuts to the remainder. So it's 10% of the top line number, but not in any way applied evenly across the centers and institutes. Again, we're trying to think about what some centers and institutes were established to serve a purpose that may or may not any longer be relevant. Centers and institutes tend to have a life cycle, and that's what we're trying to look at. Some of them represent significant costs and may no longer be fulfilling a worthwhile mission.
All right.
Thank you.
Jay had a question that was about service first. So Jay, I'll hold your question for Scott Savage, who will be presenting shortly. And then Shoshana had a question. I understand that eliminating positions that are currently vacant or will be through attrition is low-hanging fruit for financial savings, but that almost certainly means that remaining staff are absorbing the additional work that is still needing to be done. As people burn out from the additional work, especially without additional pay, they will leave the university, making way for additional job reduction savings, but more work for colleagues. What is the university doing to equitably reduce staffing and not just from the units with the highest retirement, burnout, turnover?
Yeah, that's a great point. So I used to teach a public budgeting class to graduate students in public policy, and one thing I kept saying was, if you remember one thing from this class, the thing I want you to take away is you should always avoid across-the-board cuts. And the reason I feel so strongly about that is across-the-board cuts are just a blunt instrument. They're expedient, but that's the only thing they have going for them. And you end up with exactly the situation that the questioner was describing, where you have widely different impacts on different units with no reference to what their current level of staffing is, what their growth is, what the demand on their people is. And so that's the main reason why we think taking a targeted approach makes much more sense. And so when we say attrition or eliminating vacant positions, that's not a blunt instrument either. It's not as though we have a blanket hiring freeze. It's not as though we're eliminating all vacant positions, again, for the same reason. We want to be more thoughtful and precise and targeted, recognizing the workload in different units, the current level of staffing, and the projected growth. So we're very sensitive to that.
And then probably one more question. I've got one online, and then these two, and then I know you've got another commitment to get to, and we've got another presenter. Can you please define, and this may be something you can or cannot do, define a center or institute that is no longer relevant, in quotes, and who's deciding this? Centers operate at exceedingly low budgets, some barely hanging on to cover their costs.
So, no is the answer. We're not ready yet to say where we're making cuts to the centers and institutes. And absolutely, many of them operate on just shoestring budgets and are doing really great work that continues to be highly relevant to our mission. That's, I think, most of our centers and institutes. That's why I say of our dozens of centers and institutes, I think the cuts are going to fall disproportionately on a very small number. And we're not ready yet to identify those, but it's going to be pretty targeted, pretty focused.
Elizabeth, and then we'll end with Sarah.
I'm just going to echo what Adriani just asked.
Okay.
Can't hear.
These are all public health facing, all public health oriented. I don't know about the Center for Galapagos Studies, but I'm looking at the Carolina Pop Center, Jeff Center for Health Research, Hazards Resilience, Child Development Institute, Injury Prevention Research Center. So I'm appreciating you saying that they won't all take a hit. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say I don't think any of them should take a hit. We are a public institution. I am a graduate of the School of Public Health. I'm the child of a public health-facing faculty. And I just disagree. I disagree that it can't be taken right back to the drawing board and say, this is who we are and this is what we do. And this is what we always have done. And this is what we pride ourselves on doing. So I'm echoing that because that's my statement. The question is actually back to attrition. Will there be,
Sorry, I always forget about this. This is my actual question. Will there be a potential, and I know this is kind of an HR rep question, will there be a potential for early retirement for people that are burnt out and don't have much farther to go where that could be helpful?
So thanks for the comment about centers and institutes. I agree with you about the overall mission of the centers and institutes. They are all public health facing. It's also true to say they all grew up at different times for different reasons. And if you were starting from scratch right now, you probably wouldn't design it exactly the way we have it laid out currently. I'm reasonably sure that there's some duplication and overlap in some of the missions, and some where we've talked to the people who were present at the creation who acknowledge that the original mission has evolved or changed or is no longer as relevant. Again, a very small number. So we'll have more to say about that as we go along. But I'm right there with you on the overall thrust of the centers and institutes. I couldn't agree.
I'm sorry, but some people might call that intersection and collaboration rather than duplication. And I'm not schooling you on it. I'm just saying that would be our concern, because where they overlap, they create more strength.
Fair enough. And with respect to attrition, we are considering a buyout program. We're certainly going to have a buyout program for faculty. There's been a lot of conversation about whether that should be extended to employees as well. My instinct would be yes. And so we're continuing to work on that, and we'll have more detail as we go further along.
And then Sarah?
Thank you. Last question. Yay. Sarah Green, and I kind of want to restate one of the earlier questions. I mean, it's come up a few times, and it's about the fact that staff are doing a lot right now. We have vacant positions. We know that many people across the university in staff are holding down the workload of multiple roles. Due to vacancies, applauding us, yay, for having the highest number of students ever, but that comes with a burden, right? And we are carrying that load. We heard from the system office or OHR, and apologize to either of those if it wasn't you, it was the other one, but that the admin numbers are outpacing faculty and student numbers, and that is to be addressed. My concern is that we are looking to staff to both carry the burden of all of the support that faculty and students need, and are willing to cut numbers, look at them as a line item on a budget, and not the work and the value and the efforts and the institutional knowledge that a lot of these staff members provide beyond just being outpacing faculty numbers. And so what is the plan? Again, I know we don't have specifics, but what is the plan to look at, to evaluate what, to Megan's point, why are some of these positions still vacant? Are we not paying enough? Are we not keeping pace with our peers? Are we, we've seen benefits drop across the board for state employees. I know a lot of this. We understand that blunt instrument, you're doing your best. We understand that cuts have to come. The budget is down. Like, we understand how that works, right? But I think giving some clarity on how we will be influential in the process of this evaluation could go to ease a lot of people who feel like the heads of departments do not see the on-the-ground struggle and overwhelm and burnout that is very real and happening across the university.
Thank you. Great points. One point you mentioned about the quote administrative to faculty staff ratio is something that I've been pretty vocal about in our conversations with the system office as well. So they occasionally use a metric, speaking of blunt instruments, that I think is unfair to Carolina, of just total administrative staff to faculty, and then they line up all the system schools and compare them on that metric. We're always going to be an outlier on that metric, just given the nature of our mission. And I've tried to stress more specifically that the not only are a lot of those additional positions required for compliance reasons, including compliance with directives from the system office, but also that when it comes to something like growing enrollment, the additional people who we need to support those students go into that staff number. And so I've really pushed back against that metric as a way of calibrating efficiency or optimization of a particular campus. I just think it's misleading. I also, I've noticed in my year and a half here that almost everybody is in their silo. They're in their school, their unit, their program, their center, their institute. There's this very thin layer of people who are actually operating across the university all the time, but I'm one of them. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that I am not in the trenches every day doing the work that all of you do, but I do talk to people around the university from every corner of the university all the time. And so I hear firsthand exactly what you're saying, that sense of overwhelm, the sense of being asked to do more with less, the concern about salaries and benefits keeping pace, the concerns about our ability to fill vacant positions in critical roles. And I hear it on a pan university basis, not just in a particular unit. So I am really well aware of those dynamics. And I'll just come back to two of the themes of what I said. First of all, that we're trying to be as targeted as possible given these varying circumstances across the university, and we don't have all the details. And we're going to communicate as much as possible, gather as much feedback as we can as we go through this process. So I really appreciate these kinds of comments in helping us make these decisions.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I really look forward to this semester. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Appreciate everyone's questions. And Chancellor Roberts, really appreciate your time and answering those questions. We are going to move forward with our next section of the agenda, which is finance and operations and our human resources updates. Scott Savage, I believe it is your turn to come on up to the podium. So we're going to talk first about our Service First updates and the budget. After that, we will turn to the state health plan update, and then a more exciting topic called well-being, which we all will have need of by then, right? Okay, let me see if I can remember how to share all the things.
You do your thing. Good morning. It's good to be back at another employee forum. I'm Scott Savage. If I haven't met you, I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor of Organizational Strategy and Performance. And if you're like my kids, when I say that title, they immediately say, well, what does that mean? Prior to joining this position, I was at the School of Pharmacy here. So it's pretty cool walking in this morning. I don't know if you know this, but the School of Pharmacy is one of the first schools to welcome students back already. And so all the new faces are brand new Doctor of Pharmacy candidates flowing through here. And it was the largest class of PharmDs in the history of the school. So the energy outside is definitely palpable. But spending 2019 to 2025, 2026, 2025 here, this opportunity came up, and the focus about operations and continuing to elevate the way Carolina functions and operates. And so at the core of what I said in June when I got invited to the employee forum, late May, June, was it last?
June. Mm-hmm.
June. My main goal is to use Service First as a way to address a lot of the questions that Chancellor Roberts just went through. And I do believe in the university. I'm a graduate, undergrad pharmacy school here, grew up in rural eastern North Carolina, and so I'm a citizen. And the university changed my entire career in life. And so getting a chance to step in and the brand of Service First to help recraft the operating model, to pull forward the aspects of the history that's here. And at the same time, as some of the comments were made earlier, things have evolved, right? And so my commitment in June was to come to any employee forum that I'm invited to and use this as a forum, going back to one of the last questions, to solicit feedback. And at the same time, know that wherever we land as we go into 2026, it would have trudged through a lot of difficult conversations and hopefully leave the university with an operating model across all the functional areas that are involved in Service First that can carry the university forward for the next 10 to 20 years. So in the elevator pitch for me in a year from now, hopefully presenting in here about some of the metrics that we will be monitoring across all the functional areas, across all the schools and units, because as some of the individuals said earlier, the focus on quality and service, there's some exemplars on campus. And then there's some spots that really are kind of in a difficult situation. And so my goal was to elevate that conversation and then to be able to pull forward HR opportunities and those things that can lead us to where we're unifying support and elevating Carolina. One of the questions I got in prep for this is, why are we here? This is a slide that I used last time, and it really hasn't changed. Whether you know it or not, shared services on the university campus is a 3-decade-old conversation. There's been multiple 7-figure consulting agencies that have flowed through the university, and they've made a bunch of recommendations. And that history has been really good because whether you know it or not, the last engagement in 2017, 2018, there's a lot of shared services that bubbled up, right? Whether it's the Service Center of Excellence in F&O, Provost Office, College of Arts and Sciences, a lot of the health affairs schools, School of Medicine. So it has been happening behind the scenes for well over 8 years now. And the fun part about jumping in this position is I do have that connection. I also teach here. I'm one of the primary faculty members for a graduate program, a master's degree in health system pharmacy administration. I've been teaching in that class since 2008 when we restarted that master's degree. And so I get to see the side of the faculty needs as well, and where the staff representing and echoing their voice, because my experience at the School of Pharmacy was the staff was really the glue that kind of kept it going. And I could say that with the faculty hat in a very nice way, but I know as a student, I knew more staff members than I knew faculty members. And so the importance of my journey there and hopping in is to continue to elevate what this forum, I think, represents as a chance to help guide the operations. The two things I mentioned last time that were drivers of why now, one was there's just a shift in governance. You know, the 2016-17, if you were on campus, there was a bunch of vice chancellor changes, there was a chancellor, multiple chancellor changes, and the focus of what that initiative, you know, it just lost its footing. And then fast forward to 2024, 2025, as we entered this year, you know, the state budget challenges, if you've been here, have always existed. But then the federal changes that we face collectively, not just the UNC-Chapel Hill, but across the board with colleagues in higher education.
Excuse me. Sorry.
That's no worries. Technical difficulties. You good? That was not me this time, which I appreciate. I lost my train of thought. I was flowing. So the federal side of those changes are something that we continue to face and to navigate. So again, governance, internal and external challenges that the universities face is a reason. Honestly, I think the chancellor and the leaders of the university built this opportunity. I was able to get into it and have been kind of sprinting since joining in late March of this year. The priorities haven't really changed. I've existed in prior roles prior to joining the higher education where shared services was kind of the fabric of the organization. But it didn't go without a lot of difficult changes and adjustments to get to a different operating model. And so the priorities that are embedded inside of here haven't changed since June. The focus on quality and service, the focus on the people that do the day-to-day. And then, you know, this number 5 that kind of coordinates a lot of the questions that were coming up. How do we cost allocate and spend the funds that we get from the state, or we get from tuition receipts, or we get from donors? And we can't fund everything, has been my experience. Although I know as a university, we like to fund everything, and I experienced that as my leadership role here. But the priorities for the functional group leaders is really intended to forge what that next operating model would be. The collaboration's kicked off. Last time I was standing up here, I hadn't had a work group meeting yet. I had just kind of forged together the steering committee in June. Interim provost dean hadn't arrived on campus yet. And so we've had a lot of organizational meetings to get to where the work group now will meet this afternoon for really its second time physically, virtually the third time. All the task force across the 6 functional areas have met multiple times, if not at least once. And as a byproduct of those first few weeks of conversation was trying to figure out what the new provost, what the dean's voice would be. And so we've got this addition to this slide from last time of a peer group of deans or dean delegates. Jacob is representing the College of Arts and Sciences for Dean White. But we're excited about using this team to make sure that the communication of service first not only happens at the school or unit level throughout the course of the fall, but also at forums like this and faculty forums as well. The timeline we've been on, just to kind of show what we talked about since starting the role in mid-March and where we are today in August. I wasn't sure if this would actually work. July is a little bit of time when campus sleeps a little bit, if you've been on campus for a few years. But everybody's been committed, including the task force members and representatives, that some of the individuals that were in here in June who emailed me are actually active on some of these task forces now. And so gearing up for where are we going now, I've had a chance through invites over the course of the last few weeks to go into a few different schools and units across campus and just hear really not from the frontline staff, but most of it is from the deans and their dean leaders. I did get a chance to come back here at the School of Pharmacy to their staff forum and just share about Service First, solicit information, but also that same option of having this forum of if there's a place that you would like me and my team to be, we're happy to join. I didn't do the facilities tour, even though I was on that agenda. I was disinvited, not by you, but last minute. They're like, why are you going on the facilities? I was like, I'm going anywhere that somebody asked me to go. So, duly noted that was a really successful outing from the South Building perspective of what the conversations you guys are for. That's right, but it's starting. It's starting. And so shifting into the fall, the request from the functional group leaders is really a few different things. Number one, what are the transactional activities that exist across the 6 functional areas that these groups are doing on a day-to-day basis and could be consistently done across campus? They're kind of scrubbed across a few different themes, whether they can be centralized, whether they can be shared, or do they need to stay in the units? The anticipation of each task force leader is to share that with their schools or units, but as we pull all that together over the course of August and September, the intent is for me to come back here and to use this as a clearinghouse for information that funnels through of what the task forces are doing and seeing. So deliverable number one that the groups are already doing is evaluating the transactional work that exists across those 6 functional areas. The next phase that will be existing into September and October, just so you can kind of see a little bit of the detail, jumps into creating what is the operating model for each of the functional areas. I've said in the schools I've been invited into, and I didn't have these words when I was here in June, I'm really asking for each functional group to, at a minimum, evaluate 3 different variations of a model. One is to stay as is, and then we establish quality and service metrics that pulls forward what Chancellor Roberts was alluding to, where you can see service and quality and how it exists across all the units. Where's it going really well? Where's it not going so well? The opposite of that is to assess and forge conversations around centralization. right? I'm not going to hide from that word. We've had experiences with centralization, but the anticipation from my viewpoint of being able to figure out from keeping it as is to centralization, what do those look like and what would be the impact on the university? Then there's the middle. There's the hybrid. If I was forecasting what the hybrid would look like, it would be to build on existing footprints that we've got here across areas that are already doing shared services. I do not think as we get into the latter part of November that the operating models will say everything's the same, right? HR, finance, procurement, research administration, IT, communications. They all may move in a different trajectory in terms of the model and implementation. Unfortunately, I don't have those answers today. But my commitment, even if this adjusts, which I don't anticipate it will, but as we get into the fall of being able to come back to any of the forums and really represent what the work of the functional teams, the task forces, have been with the effort that's ongoing right now. Then it comes the difficult decision, right? What is the future state operating model? And you can see the plan for implementation as we get into 2026. And the change management associated with whatever operating model that we agree to move forward with, it's not going to be easy. Whether we stay the same or we centralize or it's a hybrid, and I think every single one of the task force members knows kind of their responsibility of trying to do it in a manner that addresses what we're after in terms of quality and service, and then the challenges that we're experiencing in terms of funding for the overall university. This roadmap I wanted to share today because frequently, as I've been in the role, what's the end point? But also to host conversations with the leaders of the university of what is a realistic timeline. You can imagine the responses I would get, what is a realistic timeline for service first implementation? And also knowing the time it takes just to implement something here at the university. We want to do it in a respectful manner. And it's not something that the chancellor nor anyone of my colleagues have said, hey, we need this to happen before fall. So the purposeful movement of activity, again, my goal with the invitation at this forum is to continue to come back, share what the transactional review was, share what the operating model potential options were, get feedback. But then I do have the responsibility and the role of really recommending what I feel like is the best operating model across the areas. And the intent is to hopefully have that in conjunction with the other functional leaders and members of voices in this room as well.
Leave soon. Sorry. I'm Megan Harvell, if nobody knows who I am. Anyway, I have one question and one ask.
Please.
Question is, I am, a minor in econ, so I have no idea, presumably, what a university budget entails. Probably crazy difficult. But why, if the situation is so dire that we need to reduce the budget, why would you start with people that make less than $50,000? Why would you start at the bottom? That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's a totally fair question, and that's not the intent. I mean, the other aspects that I didn't mention that are along the same lines of what you all were asking Chancellor Roberts in terms of an evaluation of the administrative spend is intended as an aspect of the HR functional group. The process of that in terms of assessing headcount reports, overall salaries, is intended. It was one of the themes that we picked up on when we were getting questions last time of exactly that. What about reviewing the administrative spend? Going to your question, the pay philosophy that I would like to be able to steward has all those cards on the table. And so I'll get my copy of the evaluation. I know you do. I saw you get you. And so those are aspects that, Linc, Butler, and I, and that team, we have a really good partnership with this. My goal is to steward exactly conversations like that, get yes, no answers, or this is an alternative. But those are things that I do intend to use service first as at least a conduit to get answers to those questions.
Also, Elizabeth, as a addition to that, It seems like every time I ask a question, it seems like the answer is those are different pots of money. There's not one centralized pot of money for everybody. You guys are trying to centralize service and work and all of that. Why don't we centralize a pot of money for the university so we don't have those kind of responses when we ask, well, why can these people get raises and these people can't? That also doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, the consistency of the segmentation by unit in school at this point. The HR evaluation of the models, I would anticipate, being able to present what is the cost allocation associated with the positions that would be shared more broadly, and that being a central pool, which does exist in campus units, like when you skip around to some of the broader ones, but a true more kind of corporate structure, we'll see if that's the model. But that type of funding allocation will have to exist, and being able to share, where that's coming from and what it is, we can do that as a part of Service First.
It seems like, and I'm going to give this example because somebody brought up athletics before, but they have their own pot of money. Nothing coming in from athletics is going to anybody in facilities or anywhere else. It's staying in athletics.
Duly noted. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
Ask Todd, they're expanding their tailgating across the whole part of Cameron and beyond. And I mean, that even if they do service that, it's still going to cause a huge mess for grounds, recycling. Anybody that works in facilities is going to cause a huge mess, and we're going to have to clean that up.
Yeah.
And we're depleted already, so yeah, keep that in mind. Also, while I'm at it, my ask is that going forward, when you're doing this Service First initiative, if I don't know where you're getting all of your information from, whether it's data, whether you're talking to supervisors or managers or whatever, but in order to get a clear picture, you need to talk to the workers directly.
Yeah.
Don't leave that out.
Will not. Appreciate that. That is the intent.
All right, Elizabeth, I'll get you in 1 second. Kind of following up on an earlier question, but in terms of the timeline for Service First, how will the timeline flow through the rest of the calendar year? And this particular delegate is hearing about, or wondering whether or not staff need to be preparing for layoffs in the fall.
Yeah. So this timeline is intended to show what Service First is evaluating. And I didn't have this slide again in June, but as we get into the fall, the initial operating model creation is the deliverable. And then through attrition as the goal, changes in current staffing profiles, but as the Chancellor said, the hope is that there are minimal layoffs, or it's not something that happens. I mean, I genuinely think that is a driving tenet of Service First. And the roadmap that's here in terms of being able to come back and broadly campus share what the proposed operating models are, and then the timeline of implementation would drive a lot of those conversations, whether it's adjustment of team placement, it's staying the same, it's modifications to positions, but the how of doing that is still under development.
So, a quick clarification. So, does that mean that the implementation phase will not occur from this slide until the November to March timeframe?
Oh, that's a good question. So if you track this, that November is intended to be November 2025. Okay. And then the March 2026, as we get into it, that plan for implementation, what is anchored in like a subset of this would be a phase one based on the discussions. I have no idea what that would be as early as April 1, 2026, right? And then July 1 of 2026, and it would be kind of stacked, and that's just the initial planning. That could change, but that framing, just to clarify, that November is 2025, kind of the anchoring as we exit for the holidays. This is what the potential changes are, and then the implementation planning January, February, March to successfully do anything.
So layoffs unlikely in fall 2025?
There's nothing associated with Service First that lends itself to that. And of course, my scope is Service First, but there's no intent of rolling anything out in the fall of 2025. Now, I'll caveat that. There could be some federal or state thing, which I've learned as soon as I say something, I'll walk out of here, and there'll be something different. And so I will
No
always be
plans
accountable.
resulting from Service First
Yes.
in fall 2020.
Yes. Thank you, Katie.
Elizabeth, that's such a tricky relationship you just described between you and, oh, sorry.
That's such a tricky
Microphone,
relationship.
please.
Yes, sorry, Keith. I am so sorry. I kind of don't like amplifying my voice because I know I already hold forth. It's a tricky relationship you're in. I mean, you're sometimes the bearer of bad news. And you're coming here, and we want to help you with as much information as we can direct to you on behalf of staff. And I know that I have seen a lot of department leads move on, and I'm not sure that they really wanted to. So it's not just affecting change at the most vulnerable, but it's impacting the most vulnerable. And I think I speak for many of us when I say we have settled for less pay over time or whatever because we love the benefits that come with being part of this university. So I hope we can help you. And I know you're not the decider about all these things. I have a question from a colleague. I do want to say it's kind of nerve-wracking for us to sit here and hear, well, there's going to be changes, but we have no plan. There's going to be changes, but we have no plan. I kind of have a stomachache now. So it is really nerve-wracking. My colleague would like to know or put on the bulletin board, will there be, not mandates, but will there be movement towards getting people that have now started to work via remote back on campus, especially those that went out of state? And after that, I think Michael Williams has a great question in the chat.
So first up, I'm with you in the unease in your stomach. I mean, 110%. And the commitment that I've been guiding with the Chancellor's support as well is it's not an easy time, And what is the best path forward? Honoring the time in history that people have put forth here. It will be handled in the utmost respect, whatever changes or adjustments have to happen. I would love to be the bearer of a multi-billion-dollar gift, well, no doubt. And every time I come back to the school, the interim dean, and she wouldn't mind me saying this, Dean Brower, and we worked together. She was my kinetics professor all the way back in the late 90s. But she's like, Scott, where's that pot of gold? I'm still looking for the pot of gold. But no doubt about it. And the other question that you had in terms of the process and the flow, yes, I mean, I'm a planner. I would love to be able to say, here's the operating model. Let's just kind of get forged through the conversations. That's just not how the flow of the university is. And so the intent with those functional group leaders is to get that initial voice, use forums like this, the faculty forum, to share what the proposal is, get feedback. And then, as you know, being here with the university for the time you've been here, Elizabeth, I mean, the changes happen. And then the resiliency of what is the new model state will be interesting to see, but it doesn't dismiss the goals, the priorities of Service First, to elevate it and to continue forward to support the mission of the university.
I've been here for some of those changes. When I was in grad school, there was a big one. And we just about lost half of our library resources. Not services, not just staff, but libraries that enabled our students to be able to learn at every level. So I've seen it before, and I hope I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing now, but I don't envy the position you're in, and we'd like to help. So what about my colleague's question about people that are now firmly working via remote? Will they be asked to return?
So in each of the functional areas, there's a question about what is the best working structure. So, the working remote question for us will never go away. As you know, there's not enough offices to bring everybody back. And the Chancellor knows that. We know that. And so, trying to navigate the push, which, as you all know, on a national level, there's a lot of that push, and being able to use the data of office capacity and occupancy has definitely been a lot of the work. I see Rick Wernoski up here that Operational Excellence has been doing with space. And we've got the data that kind of forges the conversation that type of all back isn't achievable, right? And so however that goes, now, as you all know, there could be this ultimatum that comes, but the intent of Service First, that's one aspect of each of the functional areas, is to ask that question, but also knowing that the data doesn't lend itself towards everybody coming back.
All right, thank you. I've got 2 questions online, then Katie, and then is it Todd? Okay. Shoshana's question online is, my understanding from your previous presentation to the Employee Forum and at the most recent Board of Trustees meeting was that you're still looking at making targeted cuts, but that you've already identified $8.5 million in cuts that can go into effect right away. Is that accurate? Or when will we learn what those known cuts look like while you work on the additional targeted cuts?
Yeah, so the 8.5 is new as of this last Board of Trustees meeting, and Vice Chancellor Knuffman presented that. You know, originally the intent, there wasn't going to be a number on Service First, but things shifted and requests were made. And so the initial framing of the 8.5 is, again, to be determined. And the functional area leads are aware of what that big target is. And then as we get into the early fall of what the options could be, either using the lever of attrition or adjustments, that the functional leads would kind of drive the allocation of the $8.5 million. And my goal and intent would be able to share back where those came from, but they have not been predefined at this point. Because even that was a new contingency that we needed to support the Board of Trustees ask on, and being able to provide what some current opportunities are to address some of the budget reduction requests.
Thank you. Teresa, you're up next.
Hey there, it's Teresa Silsby from ITS. Scott, thank you for coming and speaking with us again. I just wanted to put out there mostly a comment. I purposely made the decision a couple of years ago not to fill a position on my team. We support HR, finance, and payroll and all employees for Connect Carolina. And what I found was while the work could get done, if anybody was sick or needed a vacation, we were dead in the water. So what I wanted to put out there is when you're looking at the work and what it takes to get it done, please consider that if the initiative is Service First and you reduce positions to where it's minimal for support, that doesn't allow for sickness or vacation or anything like that. And in the process, we end up, this goes along to the comments about our existing employees, killing them in the process because, or the service is going to be impacted. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I'm a 29-year employee, so I've been here a long time and seen a lot of changes here. Thank you for your time.
When I saw you on the Zoom picture, I remember you on the front row last time here. So I was like, well, she's not going to ask a question today. But yes, I appreciate that comment and appreciate all the time that you've spent serving the university. So the redundancy capacity planning for each of those is 110% intended to be evaluated. And just being able, like right now, one of the questions I had for the organization was, well, what are the shared services that exist in the university? I mean, it kind of goes back to that Center Institute question, but that's never been collated, all right? And so that is something that I will be able to share at the next employee forum, is where there are pockets of shared services now, and being able to say, did we miss anything? But that type of due diligence just hadn't happened before.
And are they working well? Because some of them are starved for staffing and for.
Yeah.
But it's not possible to work well. Sorry.
She just said Mike. Elizabeth said making sure that with the service pieces of, say it again, I'm sorry.
The ones that are centralized are actually effectively
Doing service.
operating because there's no sense consolidating 2 trucks that are running on 2 tires each.
Yeah. And the questions I've had so far with some of the shared service locations of what metrics are you tracking just to show, and that I'm not just talking about quantitative, but the quality pieces of what's truly happening. That's not really necessarily there yet.
Todd?
I'm Todd Hannon with the Grounds Department. As the university continues to grow, I know this has been brought up multiple times. As the university grows, our positions are not growing. The business school is coming online now, and we're actually hoping that Brightview is going to carry that contract for a year in anticipation that we're going to get an additional position to help manage that area. Is there a way that the university has looked at maybe reducing some of their real estate profile, or because that could cut down on some of the buildings that right now might have one or two offices occupied, and we're paying utilities and outside and inside maintenance fees for a building that you could consolidate some of these groups into one or two buildings and then sell? I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking of other ways to reduce costs, while hopefully adding on more people to maintain what is still growing, especially on the South Campus.
Yeah. It's clear that just in the sitting in here today, the facilities questions kind of extended from the last forum as well. Again, my goal is when I hear things to be a conduit to kind of push the conversation. So why don't we just stay connected over the next few weeks? And with Howard coming in, I think there is a genuine intent of taking some of the history of where facilities was, where it's gotten to over the last 5 years, and then this growing campus request. And so last time, I'm blanking, she left already. What was her name? Megan was, asked that question, and we were able to get Nate and Howard out there, and so potentially we could have a follow-up conversation with you and get those answers. Yeah.
I had a question brought forward by a colleague. So if we are centralizing staff units and to realize potential reductions, will the number of vice chancellors also be centralized and reduced?
Yeah. That's always one that gets applause at the employee forum, right? Again, the last conversation we had that was asked about, and part of what Linc's team is reviewing, and the Chancellor mentioned this, the administrative overhead compared to our peers across the university is a conversation that I've seen him steward continuously, right? What is the right size? And based off that employee forum conversation, as we've been building out the HR functional group, that type of assessment is intended. Now, I don't know what the output of that will be, but it's going to be reviewed, and what just like the operating models, what's the right leadership structure to make that successful? So it's not out of scope for what we're trying to accomplish. Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead and, Sarah, I'll take your question, and then we're going to go ahead and move forward to Linc Butler's update. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up to Katie's, or whomever Katie was asking that question on behalf of, which is, you had mentioned that there isn't like a clear structure or plan. Is there an intention of sharing the rubric or whatever tool you all utilize? I know that there are certain, yes, vice chancellors, but also at some of our schools, right? We have deans, and then associate deans, and then senior associate deans, and then at what point are we creating positions so that we can justify a salary for a job that was actually being done at a different level? Yeah. And so the actual question is, will those rubrics or that analysis process be transparent so that we can see and kind of like fact check at our individual, because again, to your point, right, you cannot be everywhere. I think we understand that there is no expectation that everyone can know everything. And we do, to Elizabeth's point, want to be helpful. We are not trying to hand slap, limit. We understand that for us to keep our jobs, our budget has to be operating efficiently. We need to have things working the best way that they can be. So not in a gotcha kind of transparency, but truly in a way for you all to share, this is what we've come up with, last round of checks. Does this make sense? Does this seem to apply to, because also there are so many differences from research to grounds to the business or graduate school, right? These are all very different institutions that run very differently, all within the enterprise of the Chapel Hill area of the UNC system. So just wanted to see if that's in the plan. If it's not, is there some like halfway sharing that could be done so that we can continue to be a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just built a draft methodology for a administrative assessment within the last 2 weeks. And Linc and I and his team have been partnering with that. The methodology of doing that as we get it finalized, I think it's completely in scope to be able to share. But this is how we're evaluating it. Just like, what we've been primarily talking about, the functional group areas of the operating model, sharing back, this is how each of the subject matter experts walk through that. I'm kind of a glass half full personality, even though that trudge can be difficult at times. Sharing that information is generally intended to everybody. It can't fix everything, but my commitment hasn't changed since the June invite to come back here and use this as a forum to be able to get a pulse, but also to be candid of, hey, this is kind of what it is. And I know that difficult conversations like that, teams kind of step up. So to be determined, but yes, on the methodology for the administrative evaluation. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Scott, for joining us this morning. I know we asked tough questions, so.
Always good. I won't be here in September because I've got a family issue, but if we need to come back, either Nate or one of my team members can come back. So Just let me know what the pulse is. Good to see you all. Hope you have a good weekend.
Thanks, Scott. I'm online today, everyone. Hello. Good to see you. A happy Friday on a overcast Friday it is. Just want to jump in before I turn it over to Joe, who's going to talk about some state health plan updates. There were a couple of things I wanted to address. One about the retirement incentive programs and the conversation the chancellor had around the potential or the desire to try and set something up for faculty and possibly extend it to staff. Currently, we do not have local authority to be able to do that. We have to seek that authority in partnership with the system office. Some of you may recall that last budget session, there was a faculty retirement incentive program. It lasted for a year. That took some legislative action in order for that to be set up. And I'm guessing the same would be true this year, as well as if there were to be any similar kind of program for staff. So and I think that the chancellor, Nate, and others are working with the system office to try and get some authority around that. So just wanted to share what I knew on that front. And then there was a great question in the chat from Michael. Let me go back to it. Will employees targeted by layoffs be given opportunities to be merged into other departments or find other positions at the university? The short question is yes. Anytime there's a reduction in force, we do try to work to find comparable positions. We try to make a good faith effort in working with not only the employees who have been given notice of layoff on the SHRA side to try and do some placements. We're not always successful in being able to do that, but we have had some success in doing that from time to time. It's a little different on the EHRA side. There aren't the same kind of provisions like priority reemployment or SHRA, so that gets a little more difficult. I think on the EHRA side, there's more positions that are kind of single incumbent sort of roles, even though that population of similar roles is growing a little bit with the recent SHRA to EHRA conversions. So it's a little more challenging to do it on the EHRA side, a little easier to do it. I don't want to lead you to believe that it's easy at all, but it's just easier on the SHRA side. So I wanted to try and address those questions before I turn it over to Joe. And if there are other questions, I'll keep monitoring the chat. But Joe, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you. Hi, I'm Joe Williams, Senior Director of Benefits, Leave, and Total Wellbeing. And it's always a pleasure to join this group, those of you in the room and those of you online. So one of the tricky parts and challenging parts of my job is I sometimes have to deliver news that is not so great. but I also get to share some wonderful things. And so I've got kind of that mixed bag this morning that I want to kind of share with you. So first off, open enrollment's coming up October 13th through the 31st. You have seen, of course, our state health plan and our state health plan's vendor, Aetna, have been in the news quite a bit. Just to sort of address the elephant in the room with the Aetna and Duke negotiations. Again, this is not something that is new. UNC Health had a similar battle several years ago. Wake Med, United Healthcare had a similar battle several years ago. So these are just sort of common business kind of things as they hash out negotiations. Every expectation is that the Duke and Aetna will get some resolution by October, and the Duke providers will remain as in-network providers. I also want to remind you that the state health plan is the state health plan. It's a self-funded plan. It is not an Aetna plan. However, Aetna is our third-party administrator, and so we do utilize, of course, the Aetna network. And Aetna manages claims processes, gets ID cards out, so again, there is some kind of relationship, certainly with state health plan and Aetna on that. For open enrollment, though, as I mentioned, October 13 through 31, there are a few changes kind of coming up. First off, the 70-30, 80-20 plan names will be changing. They're just sort of shifting those over to the standard PPO. PPO just means Preferred Provider Organization, which simply means you have in-network, but you also have out-of-network providers that you're able to use. And the plus PPO will be the 80-20 plan. This year, some things are going to be a little different. The tobacco attestation, for instance, is gone. You will not have a tobacco question to answer. And if you forget to do your open enrollment, you won't be stuck paying an extra $60 a month in a tobacco surcharge. So good thing there. The other piece is that everyone will still default to the standard plan, the 70-30 plan. So if you do want that plus plan, the 80-20 plan, you will, of course, have to go in during open enrollment and go into that plus plan if you want that. Now, here's one of the not so great news is that coverage, sadly, is kind of going down. Deductibles are going up. Some of the co-insurances, co-pay amounts you'll see here, if you can read that. Some of those things are going up. And that, again, is the tricky part of all of this. So as we take a look at this, you'll see, of course, we will have some additional out-of-pocket costs. But I will say, even though it's a kind of a bleak and cloudy situation, there's a few beams of light that are shining through that you'll see in just a few moments as we move through the presentation. First off, the Clear Pricing Project, that CPP network, that program is actually ending the end of this year. And they're introducing a new program for 2026 called Preferred Providers. So much like the CPP, if you were to see a CPP provider, you would have a much lower kind of out-of-pocket cost to see for those copays. The same will be true with these preferred providers. And they'll be hopefully a fairly robust network as they're bringing these preferred providers online. Now, a tricky part in all of this is typically during open enrollment, you will go in, you will do your open enrollment, and you'll see, of course, your primary care provider, and that's where you can make any changes to your primary care provider. Now, some of you may look and see that, hey, this particular example at the top there, they're a clear pricing and they're a preferred provider, which means into 2026, this person with both of those little tags there will be, of course, in kind of ending that CPP in 2025, but also moving into that preferred provider status in 2026. If you make a change during open enrollment on your primary care provider, it will go into effect immediately. So if you're trying to use a primary or a clear pricing project provider to the end of the year, you will want to hold up if you want to make a change and make that change after January 1. Okay? So again, if you change your primary care provider, it does go into effect immediately, and you will lose that name on your ID card if you're using like a clear pricing project provider. Under the pharmacy benefits, let me just kind of remind you again that, CVS Caremark is the pharmacy benefits manager for the state health plan. The state health plan uses what they call a closed formulary, which means kind of quarterly. There's a review process, and all the thousands of medications that are available in the formulary are reviewed. Occasionally, things will shift from tier to tier, so the costs may go up. Sometimes costs go down, just depending on the tier, depending on generic availabilities. So again, just be aware that those changes are out there. On the state health plan's website, they do have a formulary. It's about a 200 or 300 page document where you can look up, every single, medication that you take, and you can see how it's covered. Also, the new ID cards will be sent out, and you'll, of course, noticing just they've got the Aetna and the CVS Caremark branding on them. And again, you'll receive those probably in December timeframe, first part of December. And again, you'll want to start using those for January 1, 2026. Some of you are familiar with the TeleDoc program. The state health plan found that there was a very low utilization through the TeleDoc, so they will no longer be offering that particular benefit. But the good news is, and the reason perhaps not many folks were using TeleDoc, is because most providers now have virtual visits. If you're using UNC Health providers or Duke Health providers, again, you have those virtual visits that you can still do. Those will still be covered. Just a few of the initiatives, and these are some of those kind of bright little light spots through the dark clouds here. First, the state health plan is partnering with some new vendors that will be offering some expanded services, ventricle health, for instance. Again, folks would have cardiac kind of issues. There'll be some new benefits for that. Also, Hinge Health, they focus on kind of PT solutions, folks with, back, neck issues. Again, Hinge Health is a specialist kind of in that area. So more to come on what those benefits and programs will be offering. This one I'm very excited about. I think this is probably the biggest beam of light, is this lantern surgery benefit. And you may have seen this. I think WRL covered a story about this the last day or two. But the state health plan has partnered with an organization called Lantern. They will be offering essentially over 1,500 type of surgeries at zero cost. Now, most of you know, if you've ever had any kind of surgery or hospitalization with the state health plan, currently you're going to have about a $4,000 to $6,000 out-of-pocket cost. This is a pretty cool benefit if you've got to have a surgery. The state health plan currently has a joint replacement program. My wife, in fact, had to have a knee replacement. We had a $400 out-of-pocket cost for that, which was great. Under this program, that same knee surgery would be zero. So, again, a really nice benefit. And again, we'll get more information about this as open enrollment rolls out. The other thing that, again, is a sort of a trickier piece is the monthly premiums. Many of you have heard that the state health plan, via the state treasurer, has announced that we will have income-based premiums. So those folks who make more will pay more in this. And we don't have the numbers yet, so I can't share any premiums. I don't know the salary tiers. Again, all of that will be announced at the Board of Trustees meeting for the state health plan on August 15th. And as soon as that information is available, we will certainly push that information out to campus as quickly as we can. The idea, of course, is when you log into your open enrollment portal, in the state enrollment portal, and you begin to look at your state health plan, you'll be able to see, of course, where your salary's at. You'll also then see what those premiums will be, so as you make your decisions on that. But again, our premiums, in all probability, are going up. I want to remind you, too, as you're doing your open enrollment, one of the real kind of key to this is you've got to check a box and you've got to hit that green button that says complete enrollment. Every year, very sadly, people reach out to us come January and they'll say, hey, what is this $60 a month I'm having to pay on my paycheck? I've never used tobacco in my life. When we had that tobacco attestation question, people would go through open enrollment, but they would not finalize it and complete the enrollment. So we really are emphasizing, make sure you complete that enrollment. You should always look for, under the state health plan side, look for that congratulations message at the top. If you don't see that, you've not finished. So make sure you get to that point. Also, a new thing for the state enrollment center, if you're doing your state health plan enrollment over the phone, instead of being on hold for maybe an hour or two at a time, you can actually do a virtual hold, which means they will call you back. You can actually have this option. They will hold your spot in line. When it's your turn in line, they will call your phone number back. So again, you're not having to just sit on hold for a long period of time. But you can certainly enroll via the phone this year. Just a few other reminders. The dental rates, these are held by the state, the Office of State Human Resources. They are going to be going up a little bit. Again, we're just now kind of starting to see some of those rates, and we'll share those out. Two other beams of light, some good things. There is no evidence of insurability for the life insurance. So if you don't have any life insurance or you've had a difficult time getting life insurance, the UNC system will be offering a one-time salary life insurance, and you don't have to medically qualify. So that's a nice thing. The other thing to know about that is every year you can actually bump your salary tier up by one. So if you do this year, you get your one time. Next year, you can bump up another time, so now you've got 2 times. So again, that's always a good thing to not have to medically qualify for that. It does only apply to employees, not spouse. And then also under the voluntary long-term disability plans, again, no evidence of insurability is required for that. So if you've been considering it, or maybe you've been denied for long-term disability, again, not long-term care, that's a different thing. This is long-term disability. Again, you can certainly apply for that, and you will be able to enroll in it with no medical qualification. All right, that's it for me. Any questions?
I do have some questions.
Okay, go for it.
I know some other folks do too. So, couple of questions. The ventricle health, does that mean any other cardiologist is going to be out of network, or is that just an option that folks will have?
Just an option, yeah. So it's special programs, and that, like I said, we're still getting details. They've not fully released all of that yet.
And then I think the thing that caught my attention the most was, well, there were a lot of things, but the warning or caution to not change your provider during open enrollment if you are currently getting the benefits of the clear pricing project. I've worked in HR for 2 years. I have 3 degrees, including a law degree. Navigating this system is a royal pain in the tail, and it's confusing. So my biggest concern is this is going to be a huge miss for a lot of folks who are trying to get their enrollment updated, trying to navigate the change in premiums, the change in it being based on salary, all of the things. Is there going to be a warning that pops up in the open enrollment system if I click to change to a preferred provider and I've got CPP? Is it going to say, warning, don't do this until January? Or is it going to be, I got to remember?
We don't know is the question. It's not our system, it's the state's system. I don't know that there'll be a warning, but they may at least just have a message there that any changes you make are immediate. That's kind of where we have been told they're looking at adding that messaging in.
Okay. Because I think making sure that is out there is going to be really, really important.
Yeah.
As many warnings as possible. Because like I said, it is tough
Sure.
To navigate. And people naturally get pretty upset when their pay is being impacted by things, and it can be easy to miss.
Certainly.
Natasha, and then Annetta, please.
Hi, good morning. If you saw providers that were in the clear pricing project previously, are they still going to be listed as preferred providers, or is there a chance that some of those folks would no longer be considered a preferred provider?
So clear pricing project current providers will certainly be eligible to move into that preferred provider program. So, yeah. So, I think it's just an open invitation. The State Health Plan and Aetna are reaching out to all their provider networks and inviting people into that preferred provider network. Mm-hmm. Another question?
Thank you for the presentation. While some bad news in there, I appreciate the few glimmers of of hope. Two questions, and one is a follow-up to Rebecca's concern around the clear pricing. I'll just be frank. The requirement that we hold off on making a selection of a preferred provider because the clear pricing project is gonna, that change will immediately take effect, you know, if you make the change. That's the scam right there, because there are so many people who rely on and who were very intentional of selecting or participating in the clear pricing project, you know, who may have procedures and surgeries and what have you between now and December 31st, because this is just August. And so that's you know, I mean, when we think about the enrollment period starting in October, we still have a good, you know, 2 months or so before the end of the year. And so there's a lot of health care that can take place. And if you don't get that pop-up, if you're not in tune to that, when I just think that that's just a bad way of operating. So as soon as you know, because I heard you say a few seconds ago that you did not know when the full plan will kind of be ready to launch, you know, with all of this information, like, is the site designed to create this pop-up warning, you know, stop and reconsider before you, you know, make the selection? When will you know that? So that's my first question. And my second question is, I'm sorry, I just created a third question. I would like to see the slide that shows the samples of the membership card. And then, is the slide deck available now for us to share?
I'm happy to share this out. Yeah, I can send it in to the employee forum group.
And I do have the slide deck, and I'll be sending that as an attachment to all the delegates with the summary of the meeting next week.
Sure. And let me just pull back to that card slide.
Keith, you had your hand up. I know you mentioned Joe was the GOAT before his presentation. I didn't know if you had an addendum to that.
I did have a question, but I'm going to pull it back because I kind of answered it myself. Like, for the switching of primary care physician, it's a moot point if you don't plan on going to the doctor between your change and January 1, I feel like. But I will highlight, I will take this moment to point out Audrey's question, and she is asking for an explanation of the shift from clear pricing plan to the preferred provider plan, and explain it to her like she's 5 years old.
Okay, that's fine. Sure.
That is those are her words. I did not say that.
Understand.
I think Audrey
Right.
is
Thank you, Keith. Appreciate
immensely
that.
brilliant.
Let me first answer
yeah.
hers real quick, and then we can answer the other one too, just real quick. So,
Sure. Just
yeah.
with this, with the membership cards that are coming, are there major changes? Because I guess I've missed, you know, whether there was anything distinct about the issuing of the card, or were you just showing
Just
it
a
as
new
an
branding.
example?
Yeah, just because people like, why did I get new cards? I didn't change anything, and people worry. So we're just making sure people understand new cards are going to be issued this year. Not every year. Most years they're reissued, but not every year. So this year they are issuing new cards, and you'll know with the Aetna and the CVS Caremark branding.
And it looks like it has the updated copays.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, it's
okay.
actually got, departments, or, you know, ours hopefully will say UNC-Chapel Hill or UNC System, you know, on that as well. Okay. Sure, no problem.
I think Audrey's question is next,
Okay.
and I'll just addend my question on top of that.
Microphone, can't hear you.
Keith,
There's
it's
like
because-
90
It's because my
people.
colleague stepped down and she always used to remind me. Thanks, Keith. Audrey's question is a really good one, explaining to us, like, we're 5, the shift from clear pricing to preferred provider. And I also wanted to explain to me, like I'm 6, what we do when CVS Caremark is risking our safety and our lives by not covering medications that we need that have no counterpart.
Okay. First question, we'll just talk about the preferred provider, that compared with the CPP. So the previous treasurer, state treasurer, he created kind of this in kind of network, essentially, to, just as the name implies, to be sort of more clear with the pricing structures. And not everyone wanted to play ball. If you remember, UNC Health, balked at it. Duke balked at it. Most all the health systems kind of balked at the price transparency of the CPP network. But it was what we called a narrow network. It had a couple of thousand providers in it, much, much smaller than like the Blue Cross or the Aetna network. And the purpose, of course, was that if you selected one of those providers, they were in agreement of accepting a little bit, lower amount for their services. And we saved money because, again, our copays were also much lower. The preferred provider network, very similar kind of model. It's just going to be a little bit broader network. It won't be quite as narrow of a network. It's optional, though. Your provider does not have to go into the preferred provider network. It's an optional thing because, again, it has some cost impact. The idea of the preferred provider network is that it's hopefully driving more patients. And because of the more volume, the more patients, that's where, even though there's maybe a little bit less money per patient, they've got more patients. So that's the piece that we are, we'll know a little bit more about. We'll be able to know what that network looks like. As you can imagine, state health plan, it's the largest health insurance plan in the state. Over 700,000 lives are on that plan. And so again, UNC-Chapel Hill, we're a small part of that. So we're not necessarily invited to the table. We try to get ourselves to the table to know and to hear and be a part. I listen in and review, of course, all Board of Trustee meetings just so we have kind of firsthand information and know what's kind of happening and going on. But that's how the preferred provider will be. Okay.
Sarah, I'm going to take your question as the last question, and then we will move on to our well-being updates. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. That was it for me. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You will see a lot more information, videos, web pages, mail outs by the state, and everything in announcing and talking about this. We will certainly, let people and echo that message of and ask you to help us get the message out about the primary care provider and about making sure that if you want to change it, you change it at the first of the year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Joe's the GOAT.
All right, Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you for our well-being updates. You should be able to share your screen.
Excellent. Thank you. I will be pulling up some websites. But first of all, I want to say good morning to everyone. It's good to see you. Happy to be participating virtually. Sorry I could not be there in person. Hello to all of our returning delegates. Welcome to all of our new delegates. My name is Jessica Pyjas. I'm the Senior Total Wellbeing Manager over Employee Wellness Programs for employees at the university. And this was a good segue with Joe going first. There's some changes going on that you'll be seeing in 2026. And we saw a big change last year as well. And that change is that we left Blue Cross Blue Shield and moved on over to having Aetna as our TPA to carry out our health plan benefits. And one thing I wanted to bring to your attention as a reminder, or maybe something you're not aware of, but Aetna does provide lifestyle and condition coaching programs for all state health plan members. This is free personalized support to help you manage chronic conditions, also build healthier habits, and really just improve to become your healthiest self. So they are provided one-on-one over the phone. You may have had someone reach out to you towards the beginning of the year, but you can enroll in this program at any time by calling that concierge number. There's also a direct number that was listed in the WorkWell newsletter, and I'll be sharing these notes my speaking notes with Rebecca to share out to all of you as well. You can also enroll in that program through the Aetna member portal, which I hope you've all visited. I found it very helpful. And there's a tab there called Health and Wellness. You can click on Aetna Health Your Way. You can watch health recordings of health webinars, access healthy recipes, and get a lot of other tips to help manage your health and wellness. So you can set up these appointments to speak with a nurse one-on-one to manage a chronic condition, But if you don't have any chronic conditions, which is great, but you want to make a change to help manage your weight, manage stress levels, you can also work with a health coach at no cost through these programs as well. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, make sure you know that it's available. So if there's a health goal or a condition you want some assistance with, they're there to help you with that. And so do take advantage of that. So it is August. We've not seen you in a while. Great to see you. And I do want to remind you that we're continuing. We're back in full effect with our Wellness Wednesday webinars. These are convenient, brief webinars, 45 to 60 minutes every Wednesday of the month during that lunchtime hour at noon. We had one earlier this month. We'll resume next Wednesday. We have a session on the 13th called Informed or Infirmed, Healthy Media Consumption and Social Media Usage. We are also promoting all the free webinars that the Office of State Human Resources provides to you. Those are held monthly on a Tuesday at 11:30. And this August the 19th, they have a session on subtracting sugar from the added sugar phenomenon. So that is free for you to participate in as well. They also conclude that educational presentation with a healthy cooking demo related to the topic. Some of you are familiar with Lifestyle Medical Centers. They've done cooking demos at our Total Wellbeing Expo and at different school departments. So they are the ones that provide those informational sessions and those virtual cooking demos. And so I do encourage you to check out our calendar on the HR website. And I'm going to pull that up now, just so you are aware of where it's located and how you can access it. So you should be seeing very soon our updated website that was recently updated in February, so 6 months ago, but still feels pretty recent. This is the HR website, so hr.unc.edu. You can find our department right here, Benefits, Leave, and Wellness. You can see the most current calendar events happening at the very end of the homepage of the HR website. You can also click on the view all events to see the monthly view. So this is where you're going to see all the opportunities to learn and engage in different health practices, something every Wednesday of the month. A new thing that we're also starting is new Financial Friday webinars. Financial wellness is gaining more and more attention in the recent months, recent years. So we'll be offering a financial wellness session either virtually or in person to help you get practical tips on debt management, improving your credit, building your savings, and help you gain better control over your finances. The sessions, of course, are going to vary, and we have a session today on paying off debt while building wealth, and we'll have a session later this month on navigating educational cost, planning for your children or yourself when going to college or seeking additional education. So those are on our calendars on those payday Fridays. And registration is open until 24 hours before the session, so know that. If you need to get into something in a hurry or did not receive the login information, because most of these require a two-step registration, do reach out to Total Wellbeing at unc.edu to get that information. We'll try to get to you before the session starts. Also a reminder, we do have TIAA coming on to our AOB building, not exactly on campus, but available for in-person meetings every single month. It's the second Tuesday of the month that they come. They've already been here for the month of August, but they will be visiting us back in September, and they are here the whole day, the second Tuesday of the month. So you can meet with them in person, but you always have that opportunity to meet with them virtually as well. If you have any kind of hesitation with meeting with TIA, maybe you're not a member, you don't need to be a member participating in TIA's retirement to meet with them. But we also have CAP Trust that comes twice in the fall semester to meet with people as well. So CAP Trust will be coming on September 8th as well as November 10th. So those will be in-person appointments at AOB. So please take advantage of meeting with those financial advisors. And to learn a little bit more about CAP Trust, since they don't provide direct retirement benefits to employees, but they are an excellent resource and provide benefits to you as an employee. You can participate in a webinar that's going to be on the 25th of August. It's going to be brief, just 30 minutes, 12 to 12:30, to learn more about CAP Trust, to learn more about their financial wellness resources that are free and available to you, and to learn more about what you might gain with meeting with them in person or in a virtual session. So those are some enhanced financial wellness services that we're bringing to you this fall. And then I want to remind you that we are still honoring those well-being days for being meeting-free days for employees. So they are work days. Just a reminder, if you want to take off work, you're certainly welcome to do that with your supervisor's permission. But for those who want to get information about health and wellness on those well-being days, no meeting days, we do have virtual sessions available to you. These days are scheduled for September 15th, that is a Monday, and also October 7th, that is a Tuesday. And there are 2 to 3 opportunities virtually offered each day to provide you with information about managing worry and anxiety, a brief meditation session where you're actually meditating for 15 minutes, as well as some webinars that are available to specifically for leadership, but anyone can tune in for those. Do want to remind you of our Total Wellbeing on-demand library. So to get to all these wellness resources, you're going to go to our section there, Benefits, Leave, Wellbeing. Click on Total Wellbeing. And then we do have a lot of our programs in here, but we also have a Total Wellbeing on-demand library. We pull information for you to avoid you having to log in and get information elsewhere. But there's a lot of great resources here to help with mental health, mindfulness, fitness, financial wellness. So I do encourage you to check this out, in addition to continuing to be aware and using the employee assistance program to help you navigate any financial questions that you have or help with mental health needs. I also wanted to point out that we are rounding out recruitment for our Wellness Champions. So our Wellness Champions programs is a training program for the fall semester of training new wellness champions or wellness advocates in different schools, divisions, and departments to have them create a wellness committee or similar such committee to focus on employee well-being in the workday. So we'll be kicking those meetings off later this month. To get information about this program, you're just going to find that under the Work, Life, and Wellness button. And we do ask people to sign up by the end of today. We did some information sessions earlier throughout the summer months. We have a few people signed up already. And if you have any questions or want to join later, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to catch you up with where we are. For some fun social engagements, I do not coordinate this, but just bringing it to your attention that the Front Porch Fridays at the Carolina Inn will be resuming August 22nd. So that is just on the edge of campus on Pittsboro Street. So join them on Fridays from 5 to 8 starting the 22nd. They had taken a bit of a break because of the high summer temperatures, but they are back. And then finally, I always conclude with information about our perks and discounts. All that information can be found under the tab as well. And in the most recent newsletter, we had highlighted that the dentistry dental faculty practice is offering 20% off to employees as well as their dependents and children. That's going to be starting September 1st. So do look into that. That was in the Workwell. The bottom of that Workwell newsletter is where you see at least 2 discounts highlighted every month. And then if you do fly at a RDU, there is a fast and relax parking off airport parking that's available to you. If you sign up, if you've not enrolled with Fast Park and Relax, if you sign up by the end of August, you get 2 free days of parking. That is a repeat deal that they extended till the end of August. So you did hear it in June, but they extended it a little longer. And then I'm excited to let you know that there is a brand new gym called Hot Works located in Chapel Hill. Was not impacted by the recent flooding, but they are offering 10% off of their basic sweat membership, 20% off of their elite membership. They're getting rid of the enrollment fee, saving you $99 and giving you 20% off merchandise. It is a 24/7 studio and features private sauna workout sessions that are led by personal trainers via video. So that membership does ask for 6-month commitment, but the savings is pretty significant, especially for that elite membership, which allows you to travel to any studio. But you do need to visit the studio in Chapel Hill to get that savings. And then finally, we updated our travel planners discount for you. So we have a group called Travel Linc that provides employee vacation travel planning for personal travel. So if you want to give all the details of what you're looking for to a planner, that is available, and they help with finding the best hotel rates, flight rates, car rental rates, and planning a full itinerary for your vacation for a small fee. So let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any of those.
Thank you, Jessica. Seeing
Thank
no
you.
questions, we appreciate you coming and sharing the well-being updates, especially since I know originally you were not planning to be here, so thank you very much for joining us this morning. I do encourage folks to check that out. I know I keep forgetting to look at the discounts, but my budget tells me I need to be looking at those, so hopefully other folks will do the same. All right, we are moving on with our agenda. And we are going to move to our consent agenda. Matt, could you pull up the May 2nd meetings and share that? Hopefully, delegates, you had a chance to review the May 2nd meeting minutes. We are still working on finalizing the June meeting minutes because, well, there was a lot to review. It was a big meeting. But if anybody has any corrections or if there's a motion to approve the May minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Ellie. Second from Elizabeth. We'll go ahead and do this by affirmation. If there's anybody opposed to approving the minutes, please speak now. We'll consider the minutes approved. Forum committee updates are on our consent agenda. Is there anyone that wishes to pull out their committee for updates? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve our consent agenda? Yes, Elizabeth?
I'm listed as linked with the sustainability, whatever they're called. Am I really going to be able to do that? I emailed them, just making sure that that's correct on what's listed.
I'm still working with them, so just send me a quick email to remind me to close the loop with you.
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Natasha. Is there a second? All right.
This is Teresa. I make a second.
Thank you. Second, third, fourth, and fifth, and a sixth. We'll do this also by acclamation. Are there any opposed to approving the consent agenda? Seeing none, that is now approved. I did want to give folks that attended our UNC System Staff Assembly meeting on July 28th and 29th, I believe. That was last week. It seems like 3 months ago, or yesterday, depending on how I'm feeling. If Shayna, Keith, Sarah, or Annetta, if you have any updates you'd like to share from that meeting. I do know that we covered several of them in our earlier updates from the Chancellor and with Scott Savage regarding some of the budget updates. But anything else folks want to add?
Just that it is time, it's coming up on time for staff assembly officer elections, which any full-time permanent staff member is eligible to run.
And Keith, to whom should they reach out to?
Well, the announcement is going to go out, and it'll go out to the chair of each institution. So it'll go to Rebecca, and it'll go to the other delegates. So Rebecca will get it. Charlie and Sarah will get the announcement, and they're open to share it with the campus at large or the forum, however they choose to do it. And then it's self-explanatory. You just do the nomination like you would do it, either self-nominate or nominate someone else.
Got it. So that would be me you all will be hearing from. All right. Chancellor Cup Golf Tournament. Shayna or Lisa, do you have any updates on that and the Janet B. Roycer Scholarship?
I don't have much updates. We are finalizing our preparations, and it is coming up in a little over a month and a half.
Great. And I know that Matt and I have drafted a notice to send out to employees, I believe on Monday or Tuesday of next week. Actually, yes, because we are in the middle of August already, to let staff know that they are able to apply to the scholarship. And so that will go out next week, and then we'll send a final reminder a couple of days before the deadline on September 30th. Thank you, Lisa. Board of Trustees updates. Honestly, the updates I was going to share have pretty much already been shared, so I was saved the task of sharing Board of Trustee updates. Those meetings are recorded, and you can view those online if you are interested in seeing what went on last Wednesday and Thursday.
Be prepared for terrible audio.
Yes, that's a very good point, Katie. Be prepared for very terrible audio. Not all of the members were using their microphones, and we have made a request for future meetings, and I will make sure I remind them before the next meeting, not the Board of Trustees members, mind you, but the tech folks, to make sure that we have better audio for the next meeting. All right, for old business, employee forum meetings for the coming year. As I mentioned at the beginning, we are moving to maintaining a hybrid format for the fall semester. I've been really happy to see, I think we had 19 or 21 people here in Carr Hall, which is great, and another 90 or so online, especially during our Service First updates. So that was really wonderful to see the participation in meetings, and I'm looking forward to seeing that continue. Our next meeting will be September 12th. That will also be a hybrid meeting, and our very fabulous and capable Vice Chair, Natalia Neal, will be hosting that meeting because I will be on my way back from Wilmington. Trust me, I would rather be here than driving a university van. So do keep an eye out for the meeting agenda when we send that out in September, and we're looking forward to seeing you then. Does anybody else have any old business to share? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. And this is where I realized that I did not follow up on this one. So hopefully somebody on the meeting will remember we discussed a resolution at our retreat, and I am trying to remember if there was a committee chair who agreed to take on moving this resolution forward. I'd say my dog ate my notes, but that's really not true. I misplaced my notes in my office. So if there is somebody that agreed to take that on, that would be fabulous. I thought it was too. That makes
I thought
sense.
communications and personnel were willing to, but then Elizabeth Dupos wanted to lead it. I'm not sure.
You wanted to co-author and shepherd? Okay. Okay. Well, I can go.
Using my microphone too. I'm drawing a blank on where we left off on that.
Okay.
We had more work to do, and I was happy to be part of it.
Okay. So we can start with the first reading today and have some additional discussion. I know there were some edits made on the document itself. Are you comfortable with that, Elizabeth?
As long as other people want to work on it with me, yes.
Yes. All right. So resolutions require 2 readings. So today will be the first. This is a fairly rough draft, so just bear with us as we do this. Do you want me to read it since I have been reading it, Elizabeth, or do you want to read the first?
Go ahead and read it because apparently I'm still having microphone issues.
Happy to do that. All right, so I'm going to pretend to be Elizabeth DeBose and read the first, do the first reading of our resolution. Let me just pull it up on the screen.
Can we get it up on the screen too?
Yes, I'm
I think
working
that
on
would be
that.
the easiest.
I'm not sure if it's up there or not. Katie, I can probably share them here. Yeah, I'll do that. It's thinking about it. There we go. Hopefully everyone can see that, and if you're like me, it might be better to have a slightly bigger screen.
While you're pulling that up, I will say Linc mentioned in the chat that he shared the questions and concerns about safety and response at the VC reps meeting with Derek Kemp and Daryl Jeter, and they will be following up with you and the executive committee directly.
Okay, sounds great. And it was mentioned in another meeting that I had with Nate Knuffman, and I spoke with Dean Stoyer, and they did make some changes in communication, but I still think it's worth bringing this forward because this will not be the last weather-related or other challenge related to disasters. So Resolution 2504, urging timely and compassionate university response to community disasters, resolution of the Employee Forum, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It does say July 24th, 2025. We will update that to the second reading, likely in September. Whereas the Employee Forum at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, UNC-Chapel Hill, or University, was created to advocate for and constructively address the challenges, needs, and opportunities of UNC-Chapel Hill employees, and seeks to continually improve the quality of life at UNC-Chapel Hill for its staff, students, and faculty. And whereas the UNC-Chapel Hill Employee Forum is in a unique position to learn about, often through direct experience, both unique and widespread challenges staff and Carolina community members face, and are well positioned to bring these issues to leadership. And whereas Tropical Depression Chantal caused significant flooding and power outages across much of our state, resulting in substantial hardship for many UNC-Chapel Hill employees, students, and their families who reside in affected areas. And whereas many members of the university community, especially staff, live in towns and counties that experience flooding of homes and apartments, resulting in an inability to stay sheltered, roads and rivers flooding resulting in loss of escape routes, power outages, and several sewage system ruptures, resulting in boil advisories. And whereas our facilities and grounds teams were called into an unknown and unsafe situation on July 6 and 7, with insufficient information or personal protection. And whereas this is not the first time the university has put certain staff members' safety in jeopardy needlessly, and whereas timely, empathetic communication from university leadership is critical for demonstrating institutional care as well as necessary to connecting affected members of the community with available resources, and whereas UNC-Chapel Hill often speaks proudly of its commitment to supporting the broader Carolina community, yet during this unexpected crisis, there was no communication or sharing of resources beyond the immediate campus or how unaffected community members could assist their affected neighbors, for example, via community service leave. And whereas many of the affected surrounding communities are home to university faculty, staff, and students, making the absence of outreach or support feel like a deeply missed opportunity to live up to UNC-Chapel Hill's mission, which includes embracing an unwavering commitment to excellence. And there's a word there I don't need. Whereas the university has existing policies such as the community service leave policy, which enables employees to provide volunteer support in times of crisis, but awareness and clarity regarding these policies and their use in emergencies remains limited. And whereas in light of the safety and commuting challenges faced by employees residing outside of Chapel Hill, it is essential that future university responses incorporate inclusive communication strategies that reflect care and responsibility for all members of the Carolina community, not just those on Central Campus. And whereas there is a perception among staff and others that university leadership did not issue sufficient messaging expressing empathy, outlining protective measures, for example, safe driving routes and gear, and promoting available support. And whereas the university's mission includes a commitment to service, including to those living beyond the physical campus, and to active engagement with the wider public good. Therefore, be it resolved that the employee forum urges the Chancellor and university leadership to take the following actions. Immediate action, and this may be one that we need to, well, I can't do that yet. Issue a campus-wide communication acknowledging the impact of tropical depression Chantal in the broader university community, expressing empathy and support for all those affected, and recognizing the efforts of those assisting with recovery. Resource promotion, collaborate with local and state agencies as well as nonprofit organizations to identify and publicize resources for emergency shelter, food assistance, temporary housing, and other recovery needs, ensuring this information is easily accessible to students, staff, and faculty. Provide clear guidance on the process and eligibility for community service leave, specifically highlighting how employees may use this benefit to support local relief efforts during declared disasters. Ongoing commitment, commit to work more closely with the centers and initiatives at UNC to identify and cooperate with existing aid organizations regionally. Develop and implement a set of communication guidelines for timely and compassionate university communication in response to future local, regional, or statewide disasters, ensuring that all members of the university community, regardless of where they live, are aware of available support, resources, and recognition. Ensure these communication guidelines explicitly include outreach to surrounding communities, particularly those where university employees and students reside, to reflect a whole community approach aligned with the university's stated values. Community well-being, reinforce, especially in disaster-related communications, the university's commitment to the well-being of the entire university community and its surrounding neighborhoods, recognizing that the institution's responsibilities and impacts extend far beyond the boundaries of campus. Provide clear guidance on the process and eligibility for flexible working options on an as-needed basis, specifically highlighting how employees may request temporary accommodations or time off as needed. Signed on behalf of the Employee Forum, Rebecca Howell, Chair. That concludes the first reading of this resolution. On behalf of Elizabeth DuBose and Communications the Personnel Committee, I guess I can now open this to discussion, keeping in mind that this is going to go back to a meeting with Personnel and Communications to further revise. Yes, Keith.
Can you scroll up? I don't have it in front of me, and I'm not digging in Teams. To It was one of the whereases. This is not the first time something.
Bottom of the page. That's up.
Okay, this is not the first time the university has put certain staff members' safety in jeopardy needlessly, and that, regardless of how we feel, is a bold accusatory statement. And maybe it's, I don't know, maybe to me, it feels like we're hurling accusations. Regardless, I know the situation, I know what happened, but at the same time, we're trying to get people to read this and ask them to do something for us. That feels a little strong to me, but not saying you have to change it. Whatever, the body can vote, but I would be remiss if I did not say what I felt on that statement.
I've added that in the comments so the committee can take that into consideration. Sarah?
Sorry, just, so directly opposing that is, I don't think that the requests at the bottom include sufficient note of the safety for our grounds and housekeeping staff that we're unalerted, despite the fact that we have worked with the emergency response team this past year on improving alerts and awareness and making sure that those come out. So this is not a note about that bullet. This is for way down at the resolution parts. I think we need to add something that names that if their reason for not sending out updates on status of campus is because they need to wait on, system office or state of emergency, blah, 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 there needs to be another way that specifically people who have to be on campus for work immediately following or during severe weather get updates for their safety.
Would you be able to add that to the comment in here for me? Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Elizabeth?
I actually concur with both Keith's point and Sarah's strong indication that there really were some, the strong wording may be warranted in certain ways. There were people on their way to work when roads were giving out underneath cars. Yeah. There were people expected to report on site into dangerous conditions that nobody had said, had given any updates about. So what I want to say about this context is while we are putting this into words, two things. It was a weird time. Nobody's ever expected a storm to do what this did. Our country is facing shortcomings in emergency alerts to begin with. I think we haven't finished finding out what went wrong. I still think we need to make these statements, but we don't know why they failed. Nobody's answering any questions about this. What was eerie to me was the absolute silence. So there are a couple of places in this document, and I'll put some notes or highlights in later, where we keep shifting the emphasis to outlying areas. And that emphasis belongs. But the truth is, right here on campus, nothing was done. Right here on campus, things were really, really, really unsafe. And there are people whose jobs it is to be on top of these things. And I'm sorry that it was tough for them. But we expect this on behalf of our staff and well-being. Even if they're just finding out in the middle of it, there was no communication at all. And everybody's agreeing that that was really unsettling. And I think, circling back to the other thing that's missing from this, The actual name of the people we work with on emergency preparedness, is that campus safety? Are they just very student schedule forward?
I don't think they're necessarily student schedule for it. There's an emergency response team that meets to discuss whether or not communication goes out, whether or not we're moving to a condition 1 or beyond. Can't go to condition 3 unless the state says that, but condition 1 and 2 are decided. Is it the emergency response team, Katie?
Emergency management something or another?
Let's get their actual name, and then are they separate from the people that we've done Pirate Day with and Zombie Day?
He's involved, so it's Daryl Jeter and Derek Camp, I think.
We could also be calling for a more unified effort with the resources on site that we do have.
Thank you. And, to your point, Elizabeth, the way I found out that there were buildings on campus that were damaged by the event was through the Daily Tar Heel.
This might be in here, might not, but I think one of the biggest things I think I would like to have asked in this and make sure it's in the ask section is that the Alert Carolina messages be expanded to include flash flood warnings. Right now we only get severe thunderstorm warnings, it seems like, and they don't send out flash flood warnings for campus when those things are happening on or like right near campus. I think they assume that we get flash flood warnings for our local areas, but that doesn't mean that folks commuting in from Wake County or Alamance County or wherever know what the condition is on main campus if they're going to be attempting to come into work, like many were on Sunday evening. If you are on third shifts, those folks start on Sunday evenings around 7-8 p.m. So just something that's important because that's life-threatening conditions flash flood warnings are.
Got it.
I agree with what Katie just said, and it strikes me just now that one of the oddest things about this was that we are used to better communications, and for some reason it didn't happen. And so number one, what can we ask for, which is what this is about, and number two, no communication can be translated as that everything's okay, and we need to cover that too.
And I think it might even be worth making that point that, we have become used to better communication and that this did not meet the standards that we had become used to. I think that might be a really great way to frame at the beginning. Other comments? Ellie, and then Katie?
I don't know if this is worth including. This sort of struck me. So I live in Wake County, and this was not really that much of an issue for me. But part of my job is to report building issues and communicate with my facility shared services people. And unless my chair had texted me to ask if there were any building issues on a Sunday, it wasn't a thing that I was thinking about because where I lived, it wasn't that horrible. So, another part of this is notification to people outside of the area and outside of Chapel Hill and Carborough who are responsible for checking in with their employees or their students. And, turns out my building has a Swiss cheese roof, and my graduate students get flooded out. So that's I don't know if that can be included or as an addenda to some of the things. It's just an idea for those who work on it going forward.
Thank you. And Matt Teal, as always, has helpfully posted a link to the emergency management and planning team on the chat.
Did we make the ask in here or make the emphasis maybe in one of the whereas statements of the concern of why a condition 1 was not put in place? Because it seems to me that the definition of condition 1 exactly meets what this situation called for, which is an alert that campus conditions may be unsafe and use your best judgment on whether or not you can come and travel into work, notify your supervisor, all of that fun stuff. That is what condition 1 is for. Yes, they did not end up calling that, but I think the question is why it wasn't, and emphasize expecting condition 1 called for situations similar to this. Maybe even adding, an understanding, kind of, whereas saying we understand that adverse weather is a really difficult situation that we grapple with and we've been grappling with for years, to kind of let them know that we understand and we acknowledge adverse weather is tough, but this is something that we expect better.
And are willing to support a reboot of. Thanks, Katie. Sorry, I have my bad voice on.
Any further discussion on the first reading?
Katie? I think so. I think we can just end the conversation and know that this will be brought back forward for a second reading in September.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and close discussion, and I will turn this over to Elizabeth. If you are interested in working on this, please either email me and Matt or Elizabeth DeBose, and we will be happy to include you in discussion before our September 12th meeting, where we will come back and do a second reading and then vote on the resolution. Yes, Elizabeth?
I'm going to say I don't have much history with the communications committee, so somebody from that would be helpful. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks.
All right, thank you all for entertaining the first reading. We are right at 11:30, and I know, Keith, you had a quick announcement to make. I do want to say a quick shout out and thank you, since this was done in the chat, to Shayna Hill for hosting the Employee Forum pool party this year. It was delightful, as always.
Yeah, very quickly, just some of you read it in the chat, but this year we will not be participating in a staff appreciation football game. And there's a few reasons. Well, actually, it's just one reason. But there's a few reasons that led up to this. And so there are no more comp tickets for football, full stop, not just us, everyone. So instead of you getting 4 tickets, you could have gotten 4 tickets, upper level, $57 a piece. So it would have been, if you got 4, you'd go from paying $0 and sitting in the lower level to paying $228 and sitting up in one of the top corners. So we elected to not do that. Bill Belichick is not the sole reason for this, so don't go out here blaming Bill. It's the whole landscape of college football has changed, and you have to have more money, so they are creating new revenue streams in all the ways that they can, which, as you heard earlier, the expansion of tailgating into different areas. But so the Membership and Engagement Committee is looking at different other different things that we can do, possibly men's basketball, not a promise. Women's basketball, we can do that easily, or some other sport like women's soccer, which actually wins. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hey, Berenger.
Thank you, Keith. All right, so executive committee. No, we're not comedians, but the executive committee meeting will be next Tuesday, August 19th. That is for all officers and committee chairs. Following Tuesday, August 19th? Oh, yeah, I'm a week ahead of myself. I don't know what day of the week it is. Don't know what day it is. Oh, no, fair. Okay, August 19th, Tuesday. Week and a half. My bad. Vice Chancellor's representatives meeting will be Thursday, September 11th from 2 to 3, and that will be exclusively via Zoom, as will the executive committee meeting. Our next full body meeting is September 12th in this same room here in the Carr Building, 2001, and also via Zoom. Hope to see you at one location or the other. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn said meeting.
So moved.
Katie
Yeah.
moves.
Second.
I have
Probably
20.
second.
I have all the seconds. By acclamation, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for being here today. I know it was a lot of information.
Recording stopped.